There's one thing that we love to talk about around here. It's planning. And a lot of you have asked me, well, how do you plan your content? What does that look like? And so I thought I would go a little bit deeper into how I plan my YouTube content versus podcasting because it is slightly different. And I've changed this over the years. So I thought I would kind of share more behind the scenes on how I really balance the searchability versus my audience needs, or actually it's not really a versus or like an and or situation. It's I want to have topics that are searchable, but I also want it to be something that serves a very specific part of my audience. So we're going to dive into what that looks like and how I plan things today versus how I used to a long time ago and how it's more effective. But also, YouTube is still, it's the second largest search engine behind Google. And it really makes a difference. Having video content, especially if you're watching this on YouTube, you're like, yeah, I can see Crystal. I can see she talks with her hands and she's moving around a lot. And you can see my environment. You can see where I am. So I think that video is going to continue to play a really big role for a podcast moving forward. And it's just so powerful whenever you can create topics for your audience and they have that moment of like, oh my gosh, this was created just for me. And I think it's so powerful whenever you take time to plan to make that happen. Like that is intentional. And I'm creating this video today because you have been asking me about YouTube and what that looks like and wanting to see more behind the scenes. So we're going to talk about like high level, the differences between YouTube and podcasting and podcast planning, I should say, and what that looks like. Then we're going to talk about tools and strategies for planning searchable YouTube content, and then a few tips for balancing what your audience wants with what you actually want to create and what that looks like. So let's get right to it. Hello and welcome back to the Profit Podcast. I'm excited to talk about this topic here today. And if we have not met before, I am Crystal Profit. I'm your podcast coach and content strategist. And today we're going deeper on YouTube specifically. But again, I kind of said this in the intro, but video is a big component of my content, and it has continued to return dividends in my business, meaning the more video I put out and putting video content from my audience, I feel like we create a deeper, stronger connection a lot faster than audio only. So this is my plug for those of you that have been audio only podcasts, maybe 2025 or beyond. Like this is the year for you to put some video content in front of your audience and see how it performs. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is how YouTube content differs from podcast content and what I mean by that. So the first part is just searchability. Y'all, I wish that we had figured out searchability. So I remember, I'm going to tell a quick story about being at Podcast Movement in 2021. And Mark Cuban was on stage. He was launching, his app for podcasters. I stood up and I asked this question. Like, it's still like, oh my gosh, I got to make Mark Cuban, like owner of the Mavericks, Shark Tank extraordinaire, like all these things. And I stood up and I asked the question about searchability, like discoverability. And he had a crap answer for it. Like, he did not have a good answer for how his platform, his solution was going to solve searchability and discoverability for podcasts. And it's still one of those things that audio only podcasts really struggle with. So this is why I'm such a proponent of YouTube and putting video content out. It's going to look different for everybody. Some of you will want to put your entire podcast episodes like what I do. Other people are going to be like, no, I just want to do YouTube shorts and I want to put clips of my show out there. And then I also want to cross promote that on Instagram. Awesome. You do you. Like, you do this in however it's going to make sense for you. But at the end of the day, YouTube really helps because it's driven by algorithms and keywords and audience search habits, where you can literally type in how to X, Y, and Z, something related to your industry, and then your audience can find you. They can find you that way. So contrast that with podcasting, where episodes are often just kind of there. They're there to deepen the relationships with your audience. So do you need to have both? I think so. I think you need both audio only and video, but It's just a matter of searchability and having that really powerful Google algorithm behind you, feeding content in front of an audience that you may otherwise not be serving. So that's the first piece is searchability. The next one is audience intent. Like people are actively looking for solutions when they're on YouTube. So I don't know about you, but whenever I'm trying to fix something in my house or like I want decoration ideas or I want to look up a trailer of a movie, like I'm going to YouTube. That's where I'm going to Google first and then it's sending me to YouTube. So this is just like what people are doing. They're actively searching for solutions on YouTube and your content could be the thing that they're looking for. They just don't know it yet. And you need to be on there in order for them to find you. So people are already looking for solutions, tutorials, or maybe just entertainment. And unfortunately with just podcast, listeners don't have that same, what's the right word? Like, I don't necessarily go seeking a brand new podcast to fix a quick 5-minute problem with my garbage disposal. I don't look for that. I'm just looking for that quick hit, like, give me a solution. But let me tell you, when I find like garbage disposal was not like a great example for this, but if I find someone that solves a money issue or a business problem that I have, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to go see it. Like, do they have a podcast? Like, I love their personality. I love like how they talked or they were so real. It's actually how I got to start listening to Marie Forleo's podcast. I found her on YouTube. She has her Marie TV channel. And then I eventually started watching her YouTube videos, started listening to her podcast, became a super fan of hers. And now like we've worked together in doing promotions for B School and Time Genius, some of the programs that she has, but it was that relationship that started on YouTube that was later deepened by listening to her motivational talks, all of her interviews in podcast form. So it doesn't have to be one or the other, YouTube or podcast. It could be just YouTube is the top of your funnel that leads to your podcast that can really deepen those relationships. So maybe a quick hit on YouTube to solve a problem, but then deepen those relationships on your podcast. The other part of it is your content style. YouTube really does like quick, easy, like get to the point as quickly as possible, or tell me how you're going to help me. You've probably heard people talk about the hooks of the video. It's like, well, what's the hook? Why am I going to watch this? What's the purpose of this? How is this going to better my life or inform me or motivate me or whatever it is? So that's really how YouTube is. Whereas podcasting allows for that more long form storytelling, in-depth exploration, or doing these really deep interviews. It really just depends on your style too, because this is how my style is, but your style may be totally different. But I wanted to just give like a high level comparison of YouTube versus podcast and what that looks like. And then why does this matter? Like, why do any of these differences matter? Well, it matters because you need to tailor your approach and really maximize the impact on both platforms and what that can mean for your content and for your business. So that's the first thing we talk about, how podcast and YouTube, like how are they different? How are they the same? The second part is I want to go over a high level, my process of how I plan my YouTube videos, which it's going to overlap with how I do my podcast content, because a lot of the content I put on YouTube today, they're one and the same. Like my podcast on YouTube is the same as what you're going to hear on the audio version. The only difference is I have a incredible video editor. So shout out Jay. So I always tell him, I'm like, put your Instagram tag or put your website on here, because I want you to, I love giving you a shout out because what he does for me is so helpful, but he will put all these incredible visuals that really just make the narrative of storytelling so much more impactful. So again, shout out to Jay. Like, thank you so much for all that you do. But let's go back to the planning process, because the first thing that I do, because I'm such a huge fan of content calendars, you can find tons of resources on content calendars. Just literally Google my name, Crystal Profit content calendars, and podcast episodes will pop up, like resources, YouTube videos, so much will pop up because I am such a believer in content calendars and what they can do for you. But in doing that, I really think about this first step in that is researching keywords and trends. So part of this is using tools and resources that can give you, like, they feed these to you on a silver platter. Like, here are the things that you can talk about. So whether you use something like TubeBuddy or vidIQ on your YouTube channel, those are like highly recommended. I use TubeBuddy. I've been using it forever. You can go to crystalprofit.com/TubeBuddy. I'm a proud affiliate for them, to go check them out. But I've been using them for years. Another one is Creator Hooks Pro. I think I've been using them for about 6 months, maybe more at this point. I don't actually remember when I found them. I think it was last summer. But they're incredible. Like, that's actually where I got the idea for a recent podcast episode. I was checking my email. They sent a weekly email of like great videos that have performed super well, why they perform well, why some of them flopped. So I lean into my resources on the content that I'm planning. And you can use other tools like Google Trends as well. If you have an industry topic that's cyclical, or you want to know, like, what are people talking about now and how can I tie that into my content? So highly recommend all of those. But the other thing that we really need to talk about is, what kind of research are you doing regularly in your content? Like, tell me in the comments, like, what is your topic? Let us know, like, what are the main keywords that you would research? Because if you don't know these, then that's like square one where you need to start. You need to do some initial research, because this gets easier as time goes on and you've been creating content for a while. But if you're brand new to this and you've never done keyword research, then that's your homework assignment after you're done listening and watching today, is you need to go do some basic essential keyword research on your topic. I also use Ubersuggest. I use this for a higher level view of my website and the different pieces of content that I'm using, but you could use that as well as helping you do SEO keyword planning. I want to throw as many tools your direction as I can, because some of these will work for you. Some of these are going to be like, oh, I don't need that right now, but definitely try all these tools out and see what could work best for you and your content. The second step is understanding your audience's needs, right? So you've done some basic keyword research. Maybe you've seen what's really popular out there, but then you think about, okay, what does this have to do with my audience? Are these topics relevant for my audience, or do they make sense? I love a survey. I talk about surveys all the time. I have a specific YouTube video that I want you to go check out. It's all about getting feedback from your audience. So if you've never done this, you have no idea how to do this, where to start, go watch that video, go listen to that resource, because it can absolutely tell you. I also ask for feedback in the comments. I ask for people to reply to my emails, and I will send formal surveys from time to time on, what do people want from me? When people put a comment in our membership, we have a membership called Podcasters Connect. You can join for free. We're going to have a resource linked where you're watching or listening to this, but I will take screenshots and I throw that into my content calendar, or I put it in Asana. I did this the other day. Someone sent me an email and they were asking me all these questions. And I was like, well, if she has these questions, there's probably 10 other people that have these questions. So get into conversation with your audience and then create content about what they are asking you for. Even better if you get your audience's permission to say, hey, can I shout you out in the next episode that we air, because you are my inspiration for this. So make sure that you are answering common questions that your audience has, but you're in continuous conversation with them so that you know what your audience wants and needs. All right. So step one, research keywords. Step two is understanding your audience needs. The third step is having a clear outline. So I use ChatGPT for this. I will throw in like different pieces. It depends on the day and what I'm working on. But my process is to say, okay, Kathy asked this question and she wants to know about X, Y, and Z. Give me some ideas of topics that I could talk about. Sometimes I'll say draft an outline for me, and then it'll spit out a draft and I'm like, that was garbage. Let's refine it. Let's make it better. But I use AI to help me do this. So if you are looking to plan something, I highly recommend using a tool that makes sense for you. If you're like, I don't want to use AI for this, that's fine. But I recommend leaning into having a drafted outline, working on like, how can I add in story? How can I add in real life examples, whether it's from your own journey or someone else's? I'm a big proponent of adding stories. Like I will go through even before when I was planning this episode today, I was like, okay, what stories can I include? Where can I really add things in that are going to be tangible for my audience that they'll have clear takeaways and be able to take action as soon as they're done listening to this. So get that clear outline and then ask yourself, what can I do to make this better, more tangible, or they could take direct action? But this helps so much. I don't just do off the cuff. I don't do a fully scripted episode either. I do somewhere right in the middle. I do a heavily outlined outline. There we go. Heavily outlined outline, heavily bulleted outline, I should say. And then I go with it. But y'all, I'm not a scripted person. I do not like to read from a script. I have this teleprompter app that I will use every once in a while, but I don't like to be fully scripted. So I like a clear outline, and it really helps whenever I'm recording my videos. But the last tip I'm going to give for batching for my process, I just gave it away. My process for planning YouTube videos is batching. Like I will record multiple episodes. The thing that I'm most obsessed with right now isn't batch recording, but it's batch planning. Oh, batch planning is everything to me. So I had 2 interviews that I did back to back, and I was like, okay, great. Those are my next 2 interviews. But then I realized, oh, okay, that's going to be like a leap week, right? So I'll have a solo episode, then I'll have an interview, then I'll have another solo, and then I'll have another interview. So there's like a gap. Like I'm going to have an interview before, and then I'm going to have an interview after. And so I will sit down and I will batch plan those episodes that need to fall in between all of these interviews. And it just gives me so much life. This is the other thing that I'm specifically known for. And people come to me asking questions about, how do you batch content? Like, what does that actually look like? And how can I make this effective for me? How can I make this work for me? And I have to tell you, like, go watch our content, go Google Crystal Profit batching or batch content, batching content, and you will find so many resources, but we'll link to them where you're watching this or listening to this today, because it really is important, and it saves me so much time whenever I can record multiple things at once. And if you want to know my workflows, this is a question that somebody else recently asked me about. Is like, can you share, again, I was polling my audience on Instagram, and they had asked, can you share more of the tools and the workflows that you use for batching? So let me know if that's a resource that you want. Tell me in the chat and send me a fan mail. If you're listening on the audio only version, you're going to find at the very top of the episode description for this episode where it says send Crystal a text message. So send me a text message. Let me know what specific questions you have about batching, and we could do some more content about that. But moving on, okay? So we covered those. Let me go back through the 4 steps of what I use to plan episodes. Keyword research, right? Or looking at trends, what's happening online. The other one is understanding my audience's needs. The third one is crafting a clear outline. And the 4th piece is batching. This is how I work through my YouTube planning process. So the next piece is so dang important, okay? It's all about balancing searchability with content you love. And I think that this is where so many people get tripped up, get messed up, and they burn out. You find all of these trends online. Like you start doing all this Google research, or you're looking at YouTube videos and you're like, oh my gosh, if I just talk about this one topic, then my channel could explode. I could do so many incredible things if I just like go ahead and talk about this thing that's trending or this thing that's hot right now. Here's the cautionary tale. When I was first starting and I was talking about podcasting, I saw that there were so many resources on how to podcast for free, how to get started with a podcast for free, how to do this. It was like free. And I saw a few peers in my industry that they really started, like they leaned into it, and they leaned into it hard. They were like, we're going to talk about free podcasting, free this, free that. And over time, they did grow their channel a lot faster than I grew mine. But what happened is later down the road, they sent me a message and were super frustrated. They were like, we built this audience of everyone just wanted everything for free. So when we went to sell our course, our products, our services, no one bought anything. And I was like, oh, because you have a bunch of freebie seekers. Like, you have been creating, like, you are shouting to the people that are like, we just shop at the dollar store. And now you want them to go to the high end exclusive, like Louis Vuitton. And you're like, whoa. They're like, what's that saying? I always love it. And I totally mess it up. It's like, you have champagne taste on a beer budget, right? Like, you can't do that. So even though there may be something that is totally trending and going, like, it's hot, right? It is hot. It's trending. It's on fire, as the kids say these days. It doesn't mean you have to talk about it or you have to fully lean into it and that be the only thing that you talk about for the next 6 months, because there is a balance. There is a balance. I think that you should cover things. One of my, I have a video that blew up. It was a short on YouTube all about threads, when threads from Instagram like first came out. And I had said, like, oh, this is how you post your very first thread. I still get hits on this all the time. And I had this thought for a split second, maybe I should talk about threads. Maybe I should be the threads expert. But then I was like, y'all, I hated Twitter. I hated X. I hated I'm not even on there. I don't even show up at all. And yet here's this brand new platform that's very similar. And for a split second, I was like, you're not going to talk about this platform. You don't like this platform. This isn't your jam. This isn't your thing. So even though I was seeing massive results very quickly from this one video, I was like, no. So my tip for you is planning about 80% of your content based on searchability and your audience demand, but also reserving 20% for your logic and what you actually want to talk about. And the other piece is you don't want to have something. So this is what I'll call finding your overlap. You don't want to have something that is not aligned with your goals, your values, and the content that you want to produce. So you're never going to hear me talk exclusively about recording content in person, right? In person, in a studio, because I don't record, like, I don't know if you see this. Like, I mean, I'm in my studio at home, but I'm not inviting people to my house to record stuff. I don't have this big walk-in physical studio. I have several friends that do, and like, all for them. I'm going to point you to them all day, every day. If you want to record in person, go check out Adode Media. My good friend Anna in Atlanta, like, she is the resource that you need for recording in person in the studio. When you want to know what production design looks like, you want to know like what this could be for someone that owns a studio. That's not me. Even if that blew up tomorrow, maybe I'll have Anna on my podcast to talk about it, which we do. I'm like, this is me calling you out, Anna. Like, we need to get you on the podcast, but it's not something I'm going to talk about all the time. So find that overlap where you're comfortable, where it's like, again, that 80% of like, okay, this is searchable. This is something that my audience wants, but 20% of me, like I know I don't want to talk about this all the time, or I don't want this to be my main focus, my main topic forever and ever. Amen. So you're going to have to find what that looks like for you. And then the other person is, or the other point to make here is using feedback loops on what's actually working. Like, how can you balance the content you want to create with what your audience wants? You ask them. You keep asking them. Remember how I told you about staying in conversation with your audience? Like, it's not like it's a one and done, like talk to your audience one time. No, it's constant conversation. So if something does well and it performs, send an email to your list and say, hey, what did you love about that video? What did you love about that piece of content? And then people will respond to you. If you say, hey, I'm going to use this as inspiration for my next video, you may be featured in the next topic that we have. So all of that to say, balance searchability with the content that you actually want to create, and you're likely to keep creating and be excited about your content. But the last piece that I wanted to talk about is tools and strategies for better planning. I told you earlier, I love to talk about planning. I love to talk about content calendars. And at the end of the day, I live, breathe, and die by my Asana. I really do. Every single day, I go into Asana and I'm like, what do we need to do today? What's happening? What's on the calendar? I look at what's happening tomorrow and the next day. It's something that I use for batching. Okay. If you want to know how to batch, how do you get ahead on this? You plan. You have to have a strategic tool that helps you plan. I also love NG. So I'm going to give a shout out to NG. You can go to crystalprofit.com/ENJI. My friend Taylor, look, I'm so excited. She's been on the podcast. Go listen to her episode or watch her interview because it was so fantastic. But she has an incredible tool for planning. You can schedule your social post on there. You can plan your campaigns and your strategy. Go check that out. But just find a tool, even if it's just a Google Sheet or a Google Doc, whatever you need. But you need to get things out of your head onto paper, onto a digital product that can help you organize things, because there's so much value in planning the content that you're going to create for the next 30 days, the next 90 days, the whole year, whatever you want to do. But really lean into tools that can help you. And I already mentioned content calendars earlier. We're going to link to those in the show notes, but I have ones for how to plan a content calendar in Asana. I have one where I show you a full tutorial on what I do before every single month. And I actually do this like once a quarter now, but it's a full behind the scenes of, you can watch that and go set up an entire content calendar in Asana very quickly and what that looks like. So lean into these tools because they can help you with strategy, they help you with planning, and they help you become a better, more confident creator. And let's be honest, you don't feel like you're just winging it or like throwing spaghetti against the wall, because you're doing your research, you're planning your content, and you're showing up that much more confident. And that is what will help you sustain your content creation efforts. So, y'all, I got on a soapbox today. It felt good. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. And I want to know if you have wins to share. Join us in Podcasters Connect. I've already given it a shout out today. Go to crystalprofit.com/join. Join the free plan. If you're not ready to be a premium member, that's okay, because we can still have conversations like this. We can brainstorm ideas for your show. And I just love having conversations with podcasters there. This has been a game-changing platform for me because I'm actually talking to people in my audience every single day on this platform. Every single day, whether it's in the bigger feed that, it's like a social media feed that we're all already used to, or we're in the DMs. People are asking me one-on-one questions in the DMs. I love it so much. I love it so freaking much. And I want you to go join it. Join Podcasters Connect. Please join. It's free, like I said, like a million times. And it is a place where we're hanging out every single day. We have not done this in a second, but this really relates to our topic here today. So I wanted to do a fan mail shout out. So we're going to close on this. And this is actually from my good friend, Amy Connell. So she's here in the Houston area, and she has the Graced Health for Christian Women over 40. Go check out her podcast, Graced Health. It is so fantastic. Amy's been on the show before, and I've actually been on her podcast before, but I love this so much. So she says, I got to know. Again, this is through fan mail. Okay. This is on the audio only version, or, wherever you're listening, watching this, you can send me a text message. So this is what she said. I got to know, did mama get a new chair for Christmas? Amy, I did not. Okay. Like I actually, when I'm recording this right now, I need a new chair. My chair is awful. Like it just slowly goes down over time when I'm recording. So that's the behind the scenes you didn't know you needed today. But she said, great episode. Looking forward to 2025. I had found I thrive when I approach tasks as projects. So in 2025, I'll be batching things as projects. Okay. Like totally aligned with what we were talking about today with batching. For example, I have a ton of video interviews that need to be uploaded to YouTube. This was very timely. Do you see why I added this one to today's episode? 1 month, I plan on uploading those along with all the metadata that goes along with it, as well as repurposing by creating shorts from that. Another month, I'll schedule several months worth of Pinterest images. I'm also launching a new online course and will strategically plan my podcast content to support the marketing lead up. Thanks for all that you do, Crystal. Amy, thank you so much for your comment. And I love to hear that you're going to be working in projects and you're going to be strategically going through the bits and pieces of your business and your content that make the most sense for you to focus on. I was actually just telling someone the other day, we were talking about, it was actually Doug in Podcasters Connect. We were talking about how to tackle all the parts of your business whenever, I'm recording this, it's at the beginning of a brand new year, and it can feel overwhelming to think like, gosh, what are all the things that I want to focus on for the year? And what I told him was, well, add those things down. Like put a whole running list of all the things that you want to do this year, and then assign a quarter of the year to focus on one of those things. So you don't need to, we were talking about monetization. We were talking about how we could monetize through Buzzsprout ads. We were talking about how you can monetize on YouTube. You could get sponsorships. And I was just like, don't focus on all of them at once because you will not get a lot of traction. I've told y'all so many times about the book that I love called The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. I want you to go read this book if you have not read it. It's a great time of year to read it. But it also talks about how focusing on one thing really gets you that much more momentum so much faster. So much faster. So sitting down, focusing on those things like Amy's talking about here, like I'm batching things. I'm going to focus on YouTube maybe for 30 days or 90 days. Then I'm going to focus on Pinterest for 30 days or 90 days. And I'm going to work on something else. So I can't stress enough how having a tool like Asana, again, making another plug for Asana, NG, anything that helps you really take a high level approach to your calendar and what you're doing throughout the year, lean into those and say, okay, I'm going to focus on this for this amount of time. Then I'm going to focus on this and I'm going to focus on this, but have those strategic markers throughout the year and you can accomplish so much more. Okay. Oh, this was such an incredible topic. I love talking about YouTube. If you have more questions about YouTube, send me, put a comment in the chat. Let me know, like send me a text message, like I said, through fan mail. But I want to recap the takeaways real fast. So for today, YouTube content really thrives on scalability and audience intent. So make sure you're focusing on that depth and connection because you can really make that happen whenever you take YouTube content that leads to your podcasting content. And if this feels like it's a more advanced strategy, some of this is. And if you're just getting started, you may not be ready for all of this, but bookmark this video to come back to it and circle back to these topics again in the future because it can make all the difference. The other part is keyword research, audience insights, getting that feedback, and content planning are essential for having success on YouTube. And then the other piece of this is balancing audience demand with the topics you actually want to talk about can keep your message more authentic to you and so much more impactful. But that's all I have for you today. So great episode, great wrap up, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next week. But that's all I have for you. So make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.